Hello YouTube. Okay, so today's video is on telecommuting, so I'm working from home. Just give you a quick breakdown of what this channel is about. Basically, I've just spent 5-10 minutes of my time going through data analysis, different scientific findings, and I present to you the information on a particular topic, which can range from investments to health to all kinds of things, anything I'm interested in. I just figured this is quite a useful thing to do, given that there's so much misinformation out there these days. You know, different information on YouTube, news articles, but most of the information tends to be subjective and not really based on any facts. So on a particular topic, I figured it was quite useful to do a lot of research and just kind of break it down in a quick 5 to 10 minute video and just illustrate to you what the findings are, what the actual fact is, what the data says on a particular topic. And basically today's video is on telecommuting, so working from home. So quite a few interesting findings about working from home, and they actually all point towards the same direction. All these studies, they kind of have a similar conclusion, and the conclusion is that working from home is actually more efficient than working at the office. And when you think about it, it's actually quite natural, because you could argue there's lots of distractions at home, so like maybe your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your family is distracting you, or then maybe pick up a book or you start gaming. But when you think about the distractions at the office as well, there's actually quite a few things which would distract you at the office. So you have to go into the office. I mean, you're already wasting time by commuting anyway. But then you get to the office and then, you know, you have to chat to people, you get coffees and things, and then you have juniors bothering you, you have seniors bothering you, and then you might have meetings and things. And when you think about all the distractions, how long are you actually really concentrating on a particular project, a particular task when you're at the office? And what scientists found was actually it's not that long, and actually you can get that much more work done at home. In other words, there's less distractions at home and you're more productive at home. This is not to say, though, that working from home 5 days a week is what was suggested by scientists, though. So when they took a lot of surveys, quite a lot of people who took the surveys said they are more productive working from home, but they do feel lonely, and they feel like they enjoy themselves more if they work in the office and interact with people. So essentially, I think the conclusion was that it's most efficient to work around 3 or 4 days at home, and then have kind of flexibly work 2 days at the office, where you can have meetings and get all those kind of interpersonal tasks done. But there's also many other studies. I'll put all these studies in the description below, so you can investigate it in further if you really want to. But there was loads of other findings about how detrimental like commuting and working at the office is in comparison to working from home. So like one study found that actually the cost of commuting is equivalent to, on average, 40% of people's salaries. So if I explain that a bit further, what quite a lot of economists like to do is to convert like these different like time costs and different costs into monetary terms, so into actual money, so like into US dollar. And what they found was when they considered all the costs, like the time spent commuting, the stress of commuting, because you know with trains they will smell and everything, it's an awful experience, and you have to get up early as well. And when you take all those costs into account, on average people treated it equivalent to 40% of their salary, which is quite interesting because it essentially means if you don't have a commute, it's equivalent to having like similar to like a 40% raise, which is quite interesting. There was also another study which actually found that people who commuted longer hours tend to have less sleep and less exercise, which kind of makes sense because you have less time. But in particular, if your commute is longer than an hour, it was found that actually in comparison to people who had commutes less than an hour, they had 30.6% less sleep and also 16.1% less exercise. So if your commute's longer than an hour, you literally have 30% less sleep and 16% less exercise, which is again massive. And it's, you know, sleep is so fundamental for, you know, making sure we control our anxiety and depression, having a healthy mind, and obviously exercise goes without saying is really important to health. So having that cut down, you can see why, you know, commuting ends up costing around equivalent to 40% of our salaries when we actually convert it into financial, into monetary terms. So there's loads of different findings, but they all suggest the same thing. Essentially, working from home at least 3 days a week is ideal, actually. And then I suppose the question becomes, so then how can you maximise your productivity at home? So scientists have also looked into this. There's three main things you can do to make sure you maximise productivity at home. One, make sure you schedule. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a routine which is the same each day. So, if you start working at 9, start work from 9 to 5, and make sure you continue that for all 5 days. That's your working pattern. Another beauty about working from home is that you can be more flexible as well than working from office. So if you're at the office, you have to work from 9 to 5, but that's when all your other staff and when everybody else is there. But if you're working from home, you can maybe start a bit earlier if you're a morning person, or start a bit later if you're a night person. So in my case, I'm a morning person, so I prefer to work from 6, and then I end at around 5 or 4, depending on the situation, as that's the most efficient working pattern for me. But the important thing is that you continue in that. So Monday to Friday, I always work 6 to 4, 6 to 4, 6 to 4. The other 2 points are kind of interlinked. Essentially, it's important to make sure you have a really clean and tidy environment, because having lots of different things around was proven to actually distract people. So if you have a book around and you get distracted by the book, or just any item, so it's important to make sure you clean your room, clean the room you're working in, and make sure everything's tidy to avoid unnecessary distractions and increase your productivity. And then thirdly, this is kind of linked in, essentially the best thing to do really is to have a separate room which you dedicate to work. So have your bedroom and then a separate room for working, where when you go in you start work straight away. But obviously that's difficult depending on the situation. For example, I have to work in my bedroom as well, because I don't have the capacity to have a separate room to do just work. But if you can, it's ideal, because again it kind of causes less distractions, and it kind of kicks in, doesn't it? Once you go into that room, you start working. Our minds find it much easier to structure things in that way. Okay, but yeah, that's basically the main findings of telecommuting. Essentially, working from home tends to be more efficient than working from the office anyway, so if you can, working from home is actually good. And in fact, maybe, this coronavirus situation is, it's not ideal for anybody, but maybe it will make the current working environment shift to working from home more than working at the office, which is kind of like a good thing. And then the three things to remember in terms of maximising your efficiency in the workplace at home is 1, to schedule, so have a routine every day. 2, make sure you have it work in a clean and tidy environment. And 3, utilise a separate workspace just for working if you do have the capacity to do that.